Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 316, the 10 most common fears that hold you back from cutting back and how to overcome them. Well, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you all for being here. I was just looking through all of my podcast episodes because I wanted to talk about fear, and we are definitely doing that today. And there was 18 rows where I mentioned fear in all of the podcasts that I've talked about. And I just want you to know that fear is a big one. And if you can get a hold of seeing your fears, then we can work on it. I just want you to know it's very, very common to have fears around any changes that we make. We're talking about drinking here, right? But maybe you have a fear about changing a relationship or ending a relationship or making a lifestyle change, or maybe you have an upcoming surgery or anything, right? Like there's fears running through us all the time. And I think when you can look at it and name it, it helps shine some light on that fear and it becomes less scary, I promise you. So there's lots of podcasts that I have talked about fear. You can just go to the website, angelamascenik.com, click on the podcast tab, and in the search little window there, you can type in fear and it'll pull up all of the different podcasts where I've talked about this big emotion that really drives or doesn't drive behavior. So, I've been gathering all sorts of information over these years, going on 7 years of helping people change their relationship with alcohol. And I have compiled the 10 most common fears that hold you back from cutting back. And I'm going to talk about how you can overcome those fears. But first, we have to kind of be willing to look at them, right? So, again, fears are very common. They hold people back from a lot of things, right? A lot of times people are so scared to do anything because of this story that they've told themselves about how hard it's going to be, how painful it's going to be, how other people might be involved. And so it's just, again, really important for you to kind of acknowledge, like, maybe what's the story you've been telling yourself about making a change, right? Anyway, fears are normal. It's a very part of being human. It doesn't mean that you can't change. They're just little obstacles that we can address. And hopefully this podcast will help you move forward if you can identify some of your most common fears in this podcast. So, remember the motivational triad. So we're motivated to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and save energy. So if there's a big lifestyle change in front of you, okay, say you really want to dive into changing your relationship with alcohol, or maybe you've been working on changing your relationship with alcohol and you're ready to go a little bit further. Maybe you want to take a 30-day break, or maybe you're ready to go to a big function and not drink, or maybe you're considering like an alcohol-free vacation, or maybe you're considering coming with me on my sober retreat in Palm Springs, California, right? So maybe you're like considering something big like that. Okay. And fear comes up, right? Fear usually happens when we're considering doing something that maybe we haven't done before. Okay. So think about that for a second. And really, if you look at the motivational triad, we're seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, and saving energy. Your brain is going to tell you a very big story about how that might be hard because it doesn't want you to get hurt. Okay, it doesn't want you to go out and experience something painful, which we know new things that we do on a regular basis can be uncomfortable, and that is associated with pain, right? So your brain is offering you alternatives to that big idea that you're having to help protect you. Okay, that's all it's doing. Nothing has gone wrong. There's nothing wrong with you if you notice you have a lot of fearful thoughts, right? Or negative thinking about some outcome in the future that hasn't happened yet. So I just want you to know that that's normal. And Fears are just our primitive brain reacting to uncertainty. They're not facts. And usually, right? I know this very well, is that we usually make things a lot worse in our minds than they actually are. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we're going through the podcast today. Another way to think about it, your fears are just thoughts. They're really just ideas. They live in your mind and they're not facts. Okay, because you're worrying about something or getting scared about something that hasn't happened yet. Okay? So as we jump into that, I want you to keep that in mind. If you want to grab a journal or a piece of paper and sort of write out these 10 big fears, I would highly encourage you to do that, just because when you write, it reinforces what you're learning, and then you're more easily able to apply it to your everyday life. So I really encourage you to take notes, read your notes, and apply what I'm teaching you here into your life. Okay, so the 10 biggest fears that I've kind of collected over the years, or we're going to go through them. The first one, the biggest one, is the fear of failure. Okay. This is everybody's biggest fear. They don't want to fail. It's like we're so opposed to the idea that we are failing or that we could fail, right? And so we will try to prevent us failing. We'll go through like crazy navigation of setting ourselves up in a way that we just can't fail. So like, for example, a lot of you guys want to keep yourself so busy that you can't fail, right? At the end of the day, you don't want to have urges. You don't want to have to deal with the chatter. So you keep yourself so busy because you don't want to fail, right? So you're putting in so much more effort than you need to because you don't want to fail, right? So this is very common. And I just want you to know you don't need to do all that. And it's okay to fail, right? So somebody actually posted in our coaching group that they wanted to do a 30-day break, but they were feeling a little bit nervous about possibly failing. And it's like, yeah, that's normal, right? Everybody has that. They don't want to join a program because they don't want to fail. They don't want to do dry January because they don't want to fail. So maybe you could shift that to, this is what I recommended. Instead of I'm afraid to fail, you just shift that to I'm excited to see where I could win. Do you notice the difference? You're not saying you're going to fail, right? Failure is a part of the process, right? So we kind of have to accept that, right? Like, and build that into the timeline that you've given to yourself, right? We are going to fail at things. Sometimes you might be so resound in your commitment to stay alcohol free that you don't ever drink again. That has been my experience, but I had to fail for 20 years before I got to that, right? So you'll get there if that's your ultimate goal, if you want it to be, but it's going to come with some failures. There's other failures that had to be associated with that, right? I had to plan drinks and have over drinks and have really bad hangovers and be really frustrated with myself right before I could get there. So we have to accept that failure is a part of the process. So that's number one. It's okay to fail. It's absolutely normal to be scared that you're going to fail, but don't let that really drive your decisions. Failure is an opportunity for feedback. Okay. It's an opportunity for you to learn. It's how we learn in everything. It's how our kids learn. It's how we learn on the job. It's how we learn in parenting. It's literally how we learn with relationships. It's how we learn as we go try something and it doesn't go exactly as we thought it would. And we learn something about it and then we move on. Okay. It happens all the time. So don't let that fear of failure hold you back. The second most common fear is we're losing who we are. We have become, and it's called the fear of losing your identity. You're scared of, you don't know who you are. You don't know what you like to do. All you know is that you like to go to happy hour and maybe you like to drink a lot on vacations and your whole social group drinks, right? So when you're considering a big change, your mind goes to that place. Well, what's it going to look like in social situations? And who am I if I'm not this person who loves wine so much? I mean, that was definitely me. I was like the wine girl. I would hold wine tasting parties and blind tastings, and I had wine club memberships and all of it. Like I was really into it. So, for me, it's like, oh my gosh, I could never I don't even want to associate with people who don't drink. Right. So like I had a huge identity attached to it. So I just want you to know that identities evolve and they can become stronger. Just like I love to think about when we're in high school or middle school, how many different identities did you have? How many different sort of looks did you try on until you kind of settled into something, right? I mean, I tried them all. Maybe I'm unusual, but right? Like we're just kind of trying things on. And just because you have an identity right now around alcohol doesn't mean that has to be your identity forever. Okay. I don't identify having that identity anymore. And believe me, it was a very ingrained identity. You want to overcome that. You want to encourage who you actually want to be. Is having that strong identity to being somebody who loves wine or loves drinking, is that actually what you really want? Get quiet with yourself and ask yourself those questions, right? And just know that there's other identities that you can have. Or maybe it's just you have a lot of different identities. Maybe you could expand your identities, right? So, like, when I think about my relationship with alcohol, I was very narrow minded because I had that identity with alcohol. It limited what I would do because I wanted to focus on drinking, right? And so I like to think about I'm looking through like a telescope and I have I'm making a telescope. I wish you could see me right now, but I'm holding my hands up to my eye and I'm peering through I'm making little circles with my hands and I'm peering through. It's like I had tunnel vision with that very limited identity with alcohol. And now that I don't have that identity, I open up my hands and my view of the world, my identities have expanded. I get to enjoy more things, more different things, a wider range of identities that I get to explore. Okay, so that's a possibility. You might lose the wine identity, but you're going to gain so much more. Okay. The third fear is being judged, that social judgment fear. So, we're scared that people are going to ask us a lot of questions and we don't want to answer them, which is absolutely normal, right? We don't want to feel different. We don't want to feel like we don't belong. And so when we think about changing our drinking, or maybe it's just very micro level, you're thinking about going into a social situation and not drinking, right? Those questions, why aren't you drinking? Those spin you around, right? And give you anxiety because you're just like, right? You don't want to say, well, have a drinking problem. So we don't know what we're going to say. So that keeps you stuck. So, you know, uh, to overcome the fear of social judgment, I recommend that you let people know ahead of time if you're going into a social engagement so you don't have to face it in the moment. You can let them know in advance over text where they have a moment to process it and you're not faced with their immediate gut reactions, right? Or if they do text you back right away with, why aren't you drinking? You can take a minute and think through how you wanted to respond to that, right? So that's a very good tip that a lot of people use is just heads up in advance before you're in the moment. Give people a heads up you're not drinking or whatever your drink plan is. And then, support yourself. If you don't want to be judged, there's all sorts of non-alcoholic options that you can bring to social situations. You can look at the restaurant's menu ahead of time or the bar menu ahead of time. Also, just look at how often we judge people. It's part of being a human. Everybody judges everybody, and that's going to happen. We're getting judged whether we're drinking or not, I promise you, right? You just start observing your own judgment on other people, right? We can't control that. We can't control what other people think of us, and I really would welcome you to let that one go, right? Definitely don't let the fear of social judgment, what your friends or family or coworkers are going to think, stop you from doing something. Their opinions literally don't belong in your decisions. Their opinions do not belong in your decisions. Okay? One more time. Their opinions do not belong in your decisions. Okay. Number 4 is fear of missing out, which is that FOMO. Okay. So we think we're going to be missing something when we're not drinking or if we're really cutting back. Okay, so what is that? What do you think that we're missing? Right? Don't just let it sit in your brain like, I just don't want to miss out. Well, what exactly do you think you're missing out on? Expand on that, right? And then what are you missing out on when you do overdrink? Answer that question, right? That question is going to let you have more FOMO of what you're going to be missing out on if you continue to overdrink, right? So that would be a good night's rest, waking up feeling proud of yourself and having less anxious thoughts running through your head, right? Like you get to do more of the things that you're wanting to do. You get to accomplish your goals more. Like that's what I'm scared of missing out on. right? So if you want to have FOMO, be scared of what you're missing out on when you continue to overdrink. Okay. And I have to tell you that it's just so much better when you can move past these fears, right? You recognize these fears and you're like, yep, I'm scared. I recognize I'm scared of missing out on something. Can I just be with that for a second? Am I willing to be with that fear? Am I willing to tell myself something different and be a little uncomfortable for a moment because I know I'm gaining so much more, right? Number 5, and I think the number 1 thing is the most important, like the fear of failing. That's definitely the most common, but the rest of these aren't really ranked in any order. But another big one, which probably should be at the top if I were to rank these, was the fear of facing our difficult emotions. That is a big one, right? People are scared to see what's coming up, what will come up for them when they take away the numbing effect, when they don't have their drink at the end of the day, right? And they are using, and they see why they are drinking so much when they take that away or dramatically reduced it. Okay. It's absolutely normal for difficult emotions to come up, right? That's actually what we want to happen so we can solve the underlying reasons to why we're drinking in the first place. We actually want that to happen. And I promise you, you have felt and experienced and processed difficult emotions before without alcohol. You did it when you were a kid. You did it maybe if you ever carried a child. You've done it at work, right? When difficult things come up or triggery emotions come up and you can't reach for a drink right away. There's so many times when you guys do this that you're not giving yourselves enough credit and owning that you can face difficult emotions. You do it all the time, and you can really make a skill set out of this. When you can face your difficult emotions without numbing, you have a superpower. Okay, so what I teach in my programs, whether you coach with me privately or in one of my programs, is called the Stop, Notice, and Feel. So when you notice a difficult emotion, you can practice this anytime throughout the day. It doesn't have to just be around alcohol, although you can use this exact same thing for urges. It's the same thing. An urge is just a feeling, right? This fear of facing emotions is urges as well. Those are feelings that we don't want to have. We're so scared of urges. Like I was saying in the beginning, we keep ourselves so busy that we don't have to sit with them or deal with them, right? But they're a part of the process. So stop, notice, and process. You have a difficult feeling come in, you stop. You literally stop what you're doing. You notice, where do I feel this in my body? And then you process. You use your breath to focus on that area in your body that you're feeling it in. And you take a couple deep cleansing breaths and you allow that feeling to be present. And you stay in your body. You stay with your breath. You stop, you notice, and you process. That's it. Okay. It's nothing. We're made to feel our feelings. We are literally made to feel this. We're human beings. We have our feelings for a reason. And the more that you can get curious about your feelings and learn about your feelings, the more freedom you'll have around anything you want to change. Okay. It's a lifelong skill. And I highly encourage you to learn how to do that. All right. So moving on to number 6 is the fear of loneliness, which is another big one, right? So a lot of times, a lot of my clients are recent empty nesters or empty nesters and they went through a divorce. And they just don't like that feeling of coming home alone at the end of the day. And so they can't imagine what that is like, right? Or it's a big one for them to overcome. And, obviously we don't want to be scared of loneliness. Even if you don't live alone, you can feel lonely, right? You may not feel understood or supported or heard or cared for, right? And you can feel loneliness even if you're not physically alone. So if you're scared of that loneliness, learning how to feel your feelings, especially the difficult ones, is going to be important because you know that it can't hurt you. It literally can't. It's just a vibration in your body. And the more empowered you feel around that, the more braver you will be. And maybe if you were not drinking, you could go out and get some relationships, right? Like go work on your relationships if that's your goal and not, have some, more friends, or if you want to have a romantic partner, whatever that looks like for you, to not feel so lonely all the time is something that you can work on. But we got to get the alcohol thing out of the way first. Okay. So if you don't want to go through the journey of working on your relationship with alcohol alone, which I don't think anybody should, because it can be very lonely, because it's hard to connect with people in our lives unless they're actively working on it too. So it's important to have support with people who understand it. So I'm not going to tell you about my programs right now, but we'll link everything up and I might talk about it at the end of the podcast. So you should join a group or get private support around this so you don't have to go through these journeys alone. Okay. Number 7 is fear of not having your alcohol for relaxation or comfort at the end of the day. Like, what are you going to do when you come home after a stressful day? It's your go-to for relaxation and to comfort yourself, right? You work so hard all day long and you deserve it, all of that stuff. So we need to come up with suggestions, and there are ways that people cope. You know that, right? Like, I don't use alcohol and I cope, right? Like, I get stressed out, I get upset, I need to relax, I need comfort, right? And I don't use alcohol for that. It's crazy. I never thought I would be able to, though. So I understand the fear of that, right? Again, remember what the fear is? It's just your brain's uncertainty about what that experience is like. And so it's trying to get you to avoid pain. All right. The fear is normal. And there's so many other things for you to relax, right? We can exercise, we can do some breathing techniques, we can do yoga, we can journal, we can meditate. There's hobbies we can explore. There's just getting outside and getting some fresh air, being in nature, talking on the phone, going to sleep, listening to podcasts, taking a bath. I mean, there's so many things that you can do for relaxation and comfort that are good for you. I promise. Let's just try some. Okay, try some. And then you'll overcome those fears of like, oh, I need this to relax and have comfort. Number 8 is the fear of the unknown, which really is everything. This is all the fears. That's really what it all is. It's like, what is it going to look like if, right? So the unknown, like what is going to happen? You know, I had a client once that said, I'm scared that I'm going to want to divorce my husband if I do this. You know, like that's unknown. How is my relationship going to change? I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, right? This is the thing. We actually don't know what's going to happen in the future ever. Changing a relationship with alcohol isn't really going to change that, right? We think we know what's going to happen in our future, and that gives us a lot of peace. Because if we walked around scared about what's going to happen every second in the future, we would get nothing done. So we like to, humans just tell ourselves, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And, we think we know. But as you know about life at this point, there's so many unexpected things that have happened to us and will continue to happen that we can't possibly know what that looks like, right? So I like to think about it like this. So if you have this fear of the unknown, I like to think about it like this. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited to find out. That's the exact thought that I had when I changed my relationship with alcohol. So every time I would go into a situation or there was this new obstacle, I was like, ooh, I'm excited to see what this is like without drinking. I'm excited to find out what this is like, right? And I had no idea that I would be here now. I really didn't know that I was going to start a business and that I would be helping people or that I would be sober. I really didn't know what that was. And so for me, I like that. I like, ooh, I still get to be surprised in my life. Like we don't need to have everything all planned out and know all the details. What about let's just see what happens? Wouldn't that be fun? So I would encourage you to sort of overcome this fear of the unknown. Is imagine, like if you could imagine anything, which you can, by the way, you can imagine exactly what you want your life to look like without over drinking. Do that for yourself. Give yourself a good picture. Tell yourself a good story. What is it that you want to see? Right? So see it in your mind in a good way. That will help you be willing to step into the unknown a little bit easier. Okay? Number 9 is the fear of being excluded, which kind of goes back to that social connections. So I'm not going to lie to you that you'll not be excluded from things. You might. And that's okay. And I just want you to know that it's more about the people that are doing the excluding than you. So don't take it too personally. People that drink heavily don't want to be around people who don't drink. Okay? Because it shines a light on their issue. Even when you're not saying anything, even when you say, I don't care if you drink, your presence and you not drinking highlights to them how much they're drinking. And they don't even know that. Okay? They're walking around unknowing about their own fears and how their behaviors are, right? And so they're just like, oh, she probably doesn't want to come. We don't want to make her uncomfortable, right? They're not trying to exclude you. They're just not wanting to be around somebody who doesn't drink. I promise. So my relationships changed. I was more proactive around my relationships when I, did this work myself. I would schedule social engagements at different times of the day. Like I would do a morning hike and go out for coffee. And then over time, I was not invited to the evening stuff. But I didn't want to go to the evening stuff either, right? So that's an exploration. That is a process. You might be excluded, and it's an opportunity for you to really know what's good for you, what's not good for you, refining your relationships. It's all a big process. So just let that evolve how it evolves. Okay. If your friendships are really important to you and you want to maintain those, you just got to get creative, right? If you don't want to go sit in a bar every night and that's the only thing that your friends want to do, well, we might want to go explore some meetup groups, some hiking groups, some coffee meetups, like go to some art things. Like there's so many things that you can do. Go to a yoga class, think about health and fitness meetups. You know what I mean? I just joined a new gym and are meeting some new people now. We went out for coffee for the first time last week, right after our workout. That's a way to be social and meet new people who have more aligned interests with you. You deserve that. And it takes time sometimes, okay? So again, you want to use the strategy for the fear of the unknown. Imagine yourself having some thriving relationships that isn't so focused around alcohol. And don't let that fear of being excluded stop you. You can definitely navigate that. Okay. And then number 10 is the fear of long-term commitment. Okay, this is a big one because a lot of people it just spins them around and around and around to think about what it's going to look like forever. And I actually don't recommend that you do. Right? So if you're noticing the fears, like I don't know what I'm going to do forever, like a lot of people are ending dry January right now and scared about what's next. Like I don't know if I want to quit drinking forever, but I feel like I want to keep going. Right? So they kind of don't make a decision because of that fear of having to commit to something long term. So what I recommend is just take it chunk by chunk, take it week by week, take it month by month, take it one day at a time, if that's all you can do, right? It's not a life. You don't have to say, I'm quitting drinking forever, or I'm only going to drink one drink or two drinks on the weekends for the rest of my life. You don't have to commit to that. So let that go. I don't even say that. I mean, I think it's a pretty small chance that I would drink in the future. I don't worry about it, that's for sure. But I didn't say that I quit drinking forever. I just say I don't drink. I don't really frame it up like I am sober. I have to be sober. I don't do that. I do know that I have been surprised so many times in my life about unexpected things. I don't know if there's going to be a day in my future of my whole life that I'm going to have a drink of alcohol. I really don't know that. I would find it very unlikely, but I haven't experienced all the things in my life yet, right? I don't know what it's like to lose a child or have something terrible like that happen or go through something so bad that a lot of people have to go through. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I can manage that. And, I have to process my feelings and have a lot of support. I do know that alcohol wouldn't help, but I can't say for sure that I'm never, ever going to drink again. And so let go of that fear of the long-term commitment by just focusing on the day that you're in. You've got so many obstacles to overcome in the day that you're in. You don't need to worry about forever. All right. Work on the skill of processing your feelings. Work on fear. You're overcoming the fears that you have and taking small steps, small little goals. That's how we get there. Okay, friends? I hope that was helpful for you. And come back to this podcast whenever you notice yourself feeling scared. Right? You know when you feel scared. You notice it in your mind, right? All of these, objections you might have to doing something that you've been thinking about doing, right? How is this helping you or hurting you? Fear, most of the time is just an obstacle in our mind. It really is. Now, if you're on the edge of a cliff and you shouldn't be walking any further, fear will help us keep us safe. But most of the time when we look at behavior changes or something like that, fear is not really our friend. Okay. So maybe it's just like a nervous excitement. You could be like, fear is a sign I'm about ready to change, right? It's normal. So it's going to be there. So you might as well get used to it coming up, especially as you go through the phases of changing your relationship with alcohol. Okay? It's okay to be scared, and you can do things anyway. I promise. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. Don't let fear stop you. I don't know if you're going to read this or listen to this in time before I shut down enrollment to my Stop Over Drinking and Start Living coaching program, but that ends on January 31st. You can still get your applications in. And if you don't make that, I still have a couple spots left for my Sober Palm Springs retreat in California in May, which would be a big step too if you've never been on a retreat or a sober vacation. That would be a wonderful opportunity to get daily support, hands-on support, and learning how to navigate that. And I know you'll have the best time. You'll have the time of your life, and you'll get to see that you're making much bigger deal of it than it needs to be. All right, my friends, I love you, and we'll talk to you soon.